Andrew file, that's a good idea. All right, friends, let me share my screen and feel free to stop me at any point with any questions that you have. So nonprofit learning labs.org is the place that you would go to access learning opportunities. Oh, do you mind saying got it? Thanks, Ben.
And if you have your account, you should probably pull it up on your website.
Yeah, you can pull it up on your side. Each of you have your own private login that goes to the email that CEDP uses on a regular basis. And then there is a way of setting up your private passcode or your private password that's a little different. So if you haven't been able to set up your own password yet, if you wouldn't mind just emailing me directly, then I can help walk you through it at another time, since that'll be a different mini training. But once you guys have your username and your password set up, you would go to this website here, and in the member tab, all the way to the bottom, our access is the premier all access login. So you would go to this last option here, click on that, and then it'll begin to remember and save your email and password. So you should be able to just save it and then say sign in. And then it takes you to the back end here. This first, the manage the account, all of that fun stuff is just admin things. These are all the resources that you have access to, but what's especially helpful to remember, this bottom section here lists out all of their upcoming trainings. And for you guys, all of these trainings are free. So you would go to not the register side if you wanted to sign up for any of these webinars, but the discount code. And you would just tell them that you have premier access. They'll know that from your email, and then they'll sign you up on the back end. But if you wanted to sign up for webinars, then you're welcome to do that. But you access to the archive of the way that you access that is copying password right here, and then accessing the resource archive little bucket, and if you scroll down, you're going to see all I have done.
You're breaking up really badly for me. I don't know if it's my
No,
connection.
it's me too.
No,
Okay.
me too.
Me too.
Andy?
Yeah.
Andy, we're having trouble hearing you.
Nothing yet.
Yeah.
I don't have any ideas, but is this helpful now? Maybe if I talk slower, the internet will catch up.
That's better.
It is, okay. I wonder if it's the sharing of my screen too that's a little too much Zoom work. But just feel free to shout at me if I cut out again or if you're having trouble hearing. So in the archive of Nonprofit Learning Lab, you'll see all of these different buckets that you get to choose to view the trainings for. You can go into any of these buckets. I'll do marketing and communication. And then it's going to ask for that password that I told you to copy. You can paste it in right there. And then it takes me to another layer of training opportunities. And you can just see the specific webinars that they had in this category. Goes on, and it gives you access to the webinar recording and also the class materials. In the class materials is normally the contact information for the trainer themselves. And so it can also just connect you to other resources and other trainers that might be relevant to you and what you're learning. And I'm seeing people commenting, so can you guys hear me okay? Can I see a thumbs up or a head nod? You're still hearing me well?
I can hear you better now. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
I've been on it multiple times and every single time it makes me, it tells me my password isn't valid and I have to have it send me a password to log in.
My best guess is if
Is it
you,
because we're part of something?
no, I wonder, did you ever copy the archive 2019 and then have your computer save that? Because
Well,
if it,
not to the library. I'm talking about when you sign on at the very beginning in the membership for Premier and All Access. It did it to me again just now.
right, and are you using your saved password or are you physically typing in your password?
Physically typing in my password.
Okay, then yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe you and I can work offline and then I can help you contact technology on their side and
Okay.
figure out. I do know that if you copy and paste the archive 2019 password and then your computer asks you, would you like to update your password? Then it changes your personal password and replaces it with the archive 2019. And then you wouldn't really notice that because there's just little dots in your password. So you won't know it's changed unless you view the dots or physically type in your password. So that did that to me a few times. I accidentally replaced mine with that. Don't save it if your computer asks.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions in regards to how to access these webinars and how to navigate the Nonprofit Learning Lab website?
Sounds like we're all gonna try it, and if we have issues, Andy, we'll just email you separately to set up a one-on-one.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing that. You can email or call me and I'll help you navigate whatever it is that you're experiencing.
Thank you.
Could I also, so go back to the Premier and All Access login area? Yeah. So upcoming trainings, so click that. You actually don't do the email thing,
Okay.
so go up. Click the register for workshops.
Oh, I see.
That's where you actually register.
The wrong person did this training. Should it be redone? Do you guys want to hear from Andrew now?
That, because they're gonna email you and say, you already have access, click the register for workshops. I've done it multiple times.
Like to send you guys on an adventure. But if you want the direct route, do what Andrew said.
So you sign up there and then they'll send you the calendar invite, all the details.
Okay, that's great. So these are the upcoming ones. Is there any other questions or comments, or even just things that you have learned or found helpful for those of you that did access these trainings and were able to watch them and interact with the website?
I've used it real quick where it's like, oh, I used it last year when I was working on our budget, and it's like quickly went there, downloaded 2 webinars, all the PDF, the slides. I just looked at the PDFs. And then I also have used it to find other content experts and just like subscribe to their email list. So some of the folks facilitating the webinars have email lists or other free resources they'll give out. So that's also been helpful. There's the gal who did the budgeting one from like 1,000, I can't remember her company, but I went to her website, got some free tools, so that was nice too.
Great. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? All right, well, always feel free to use me as a resource when you're trying to navigate that website. And then Artie, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to throw it to you to share a little bit about the Power Building Resident Summit coming up.
Yeah, so that, well, do you want me to segue into the community engagement and then that, or I don't think I saw the agenda.
Yeah, you know what? Let me have you last because you're right. That's a good one. And then I'm going to make one comment. This week, our CEDP monthly newsletter is going out. I know for many of you, that's a helpful tool to get out the different events that are going on at your organization. or share any relevant community trainings or events that you know is happening. So please email me by Thursday at 12 and send me anything that you would like to include in that monthly newsletter to share out with the rest of the CEDP. And then Gloria or Elliot, whomever, if you would like to just give us a quick update on where you're at in your transition. I know because Elliot has COVID, we pushed the introduction and partner highlight to June. So they're just going to give us a quick update on where they're at now and then share an event that they have coming up with us. It could be either of you.
Yeah, let me say hello. And yeah, from COVIDville over here. Sorry to miss being with you in person, but really excited about just being able to reconnect. I say reconnect because it feels like we've got, you know, so many natural opportunities that have always been there. Basically, you all know, I mean, the Downtown Partnership was created. Jan did a lot of this work and a number of us, but in 29 and 10 to create the PBID assessment district. And the partnership, you know, manages that district and basically is sort of chartered to provide services in a zoned fashion, marketing, clean and safe, and event activation. And I think what, you know, my kind of strong feeling, and this came from doing work on downtown again through the drive lens at CVCF, and I think for the board of the partnership kind of got to a place of feeling like the, you know, progress needs to continue and accelerate, and we can't be satisfied with where things are, especially after having invested tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure. And so you know, we're committed to providing those services at a great level, and there's amazing growth that's happening across the board on those, but really long-term sort of bending the arc requires a bigger sort of mandate, level of thinking, ambition. And that's, you know, that's what I heard from this board, and coming into the position. That's why I was interested in the first place, was the idea that had always existed around the PBID, which was that we're going to fund these services, and candidly, it's not a huge amount of funding given the scope of the need. But by doing this thing together, we're going to come around and create, you know, more community power, you know, basically together, figuring out how to do things together that exceed and are greater than the sum of the parts from just the kind of assessment dollar perspective. So that's always been the vision. And for me, it's kind of getting back to that. And so there's amazing things that are happening in terms of our service delivery. I mean, on Tuesday, a week from today, we'll announce with the city, you know, these like couple of dozen young people who are being hired to help be out as fellows and serving the, you know, basic kind of clean and safe needs of the community. We've got great things that are happening in terms of working with our Spanish language merchants. Gloria has been the lead and totally developed that. And I just went to the latest meeting last week, and it was fantastic. It was, you know, going back 15 years, is like a tone and a vibe from merchants that is very unfamiliar from times past about how they're taking advantage of opportunities that are coming through, you know, a Frez Yes Fest, for example, and finding that they're having their best sales days like ever because they're figuring out how to position. It's awesome. And, you know, we want to see more events happen. So but then at the same time, we want to figure out how we can be part of conversations that are about change and investment and development with the community. So creating ways for community voice to come in around development scenarios. And from there, we know that there's continued infrastructure investment that's needed to support development continuing to happen. And we also recognize that there are some things that are just kind of missing or would provide outsized value to the rest of downtown if they were created. So everything from bathrooms for customers to childcare, which would add value to every square foot of office space and residential. Even boutique hotel kind of falls in the category of doesn't make a lot of money on its own, but creates a lot of value for the surrounding area. So it's, you know, it's working on in some new ways. And there's more I could say about all that, but that's why we have the State of Downtown, because we're going to have a great party celebrating some of the best of what downtown has to offer. It's going to be a really fun evening with some great food and drink and a really fun loteria game, which is going to draw you from the Warner's Theater where the event is down Fulton towards Tioga and on the way, picking up your chance to win some goodies. And at same, you know, so that's all awesome. And we're going to talk about what this kind of new role is and what this future is that we're advocating for and helping create as an organization. So I'm really excited about all that. And let's see, the tickets are on sale now. So
For what day?
hope to see you.
And that is April 21st.
It is April 21st. That's next Friday. And let's see, I was going to put the link in the chat. Let me figure out that real quick. Use my pandemic skills to put stuff in chat. There we
Great,
go.
yeah, thanks for doing that, Elliot.
Yeah, Gloria, do you want to add anything?
No, other than we're really excited to, you know, kind of speak to everybody on what we've been working with, what we've been working on and what's to come to downtown. Like you said, April 21st, and it'll be from 5 to 7 p.m. and you can get your tickets on the link that he provided. So we look forward to seeing all of you there.
That's exciting. Thank you, Elliot, and thanks for the quick update and vision. Exciting.
Yeah, I think maybe the one thing I should really put a fine point on for this group is just as you're listening to the things that I'm talking about, being a sort of a different role and, you know, a different body of work for the organization as we try to create value ultimately, right? You're hearing a lot of things that do go beyond what our assessment dollars are chartered to fund. And so I think, and this is, you know, right in line with that sort of downtown 2.0 drive vision, there needs to be this entity that's pulling community and communities together and trying to solve some of these bigger structural problems. And so more and more the Downtown Fresno Foundation, which is our, you know, 501c3, and the Downtown Partnership as the 501c6 are going to be working together. You know, the foundation's done some great stuff, thank goodness, to be there and sort of, you know, be able to pass through dollars for some really high impact projects. My view is that we're going to see just more and more sort of integration such that the Downtown Partnership Board sees that it's, you know, that it's all one big strategy for our downtown. So more of a role for grant making, more of a role for the 501c3 voice and activity to be showing up.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions that you guys have to Elliot based off of just his updates, vision, and open share?
Just a comment. Glad you're on the case, Elliot.
I do want to say, Elliot, this sounds all very familiar, and I think it's really exciting that some of the things we talked about all those years ago are actually going to happen.
Yep.
I'm just glad you're there. You're the right person for the job, for the work at this time. So really thrilled that you're back and doing this work at the ground level. Great.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you. Of course, I didn't know our team coming in, and I've been so blessed and thrilled to have amazing folks. Gloria's just the finest example, but we've got so much energy and creativity and just passion that folks are pouring into this work. So it's that's been a huge boost. But thank you all.
Karen Elliott, and you guys see the links in the chat to the flyer and the tickets, so feel free to share that information with your community members and your board. We are now going to transition to our.
Yeah, so this is a great transition. Elliot's work, you know, with downtown, that's one of our initiatives, Downtown 2.0. What I want to try to continue to do with this conversation today, because we bring up drive, civic infrastructure, with, you know, opportunity corridors, CEDP is part of housing and the permanent affordable housing, all drive initiatives. I want to make sure that we, with each conversation that I have with y'all, that I bring a little bit more depth of understanding and knowledge about what drive work is happening, so that you guys can link to it. Because there's a lot of linkages to drive and CEDP, and that's intentional. And then I'm gonna end with the April 29th event that I've sent you all information about, asking you to send any residents but I'll get to that in a second. So drive, a reminder, is a 10-year vision of ultimately addressing economic upward mobility in Fresno through a lens of neighborhood development, human capital / human development, and economic development, right? So with neighborhood development, I'm going to focus on that today. We do have our civic infrastructure, which is very similar but different from CEDP. Both place-based. Each of you have your geographical areas here in Fresno. ENP is the intermediary organization that walks alongside the hub organizations, as we call them, for civic infrastructure. So these are nonprofits that are doing work. And Andy, if you want to share, I sent you a link, this map on the screen, so our virtual partners can look at that. The green neighborhoods are our current civic infrastructure neighborhoods. So those are 8 organizations working in those 8 neighborhoods, and they, day to day, we fund them to do community organizing, to have learning conversations with those residents. And as they're having learning conversations with them, they're inviting them to a community space, a community meeting, where they start meeting other residents in their geographical neighborhood and start creating strategies to address issues going on in their own neighborhood. Maybe they're things like traffic, maybe it's green space, maybe it's housing, maybe it's looking at a policy, but they decide with their hubs what they want to focus on. So those are going on in those green neighborhoods. They've been working at this for 3 years now. COVID slowed things down in year 1 for sure, but they're out there and engaged in various ways. Now, the difference between a hub and a CEDP partner is we are not funding them to do projects. We are funding them to do community organizing, to build power amongst the residents in those neighborhoods. So it's asset-based work. We've always used that term, but it's asset-based community development that leads to the human development of the residents in those neighborhoods, the power building, their knowledge, their ability to advocate and serve in their own neighborhoods over a course of time, so that they have a strong, in a sense, maybe they call it neighborhood association, maybe it's not called that, maybe it's called something else, but it's a collective of residents that are constantly engaged in conversation and in action for the betterment of their neighborhood, okay? Now CEDP, you guys some of you might be doing that power building, some of you are doing asset-based community development towards projects. But once again, I'm gonna reiterate, we fund hubs to do power building, not to do projects. But some of them are already doing projects. So we say leverage those projects to get you to the power building. So an example of that is if you're doing a food distribution, while those folks that are in line waiting for the food, you might have someone doing learning conversations with them while they're in their car, or whether they're waiting in a line, right? And then you're inviting them to a community space. That's an example of how you leverage a service project to do power building and invite them to a community space of conversation. So that is one very, very close aspect of what CEDP is all about. So when Keith and I launched CEDP back in 2017, we had a very similar vision. We had these CDCs, there were 5 of them back then, that were place-based doing work, mostly project work, but we really infused the asset-based community development because we wanted the residents to be empowered to be a part of the decision-making of what that CEDP partner did, right? And we still want that. There's some similarities there. Let me stop before I go on to some of the other neighborhood development initiatives that drive and see if there's any questions from you all about the differences between hubs and CEDP partners. Okay, nothing on the chat.
Artie,
Yeah.
I have a question. The opportunity corridors, I understand Blackstone and Kings Canyon, where it tees and comes through downtown into Southwest. What street is that?
Let's, okay, so no questions about civic infrastructure. Let's go ahead and segue to opportunity corridors. So thank you, Jan. So yeah, the original, that dark line that you see going down is Blackstone, obviously cuts into downtown where the major transition hub is, and then goes to Ventura Kings Canyon. What Keith and I originally saw as an aspect of addressing equity is looking at that southwest loop. So that would go from the Van Ness and Ventura down Ventura that curves into California, goes in front of Edison from California, either down to like Fruit or Walnut, down to Church going back east to Elm, and then Elm back up to Ventura. So that's that loop. Does that make sense, Jan?
It does, and I'm curious about the Ventura section because that goes through Chinatown.
Yeah. So there's been not as much work, and so Keith and his Blackstone work was really the catalyst for what we call this Fresno Opportunity Corridors. He did a ton of work on Blackstone we all know about, right, through Better Blackstone. Right. So what we're trying to do is duplicate that along Ventura. Now there has been some work that ENP has done, and Andrew, I don't know if you're in a place to share a little bit about what ENP has been doing along the Blackstone corridor. No, okay. So their team is better suited to kind of share. The city's been doing some work on looking at like some possibilities along intersections like
Are you saying Kings Canyon?
Kings Canyon, Ventura.
Oh, okay, yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the city, us and Jackson CDC partnered together. Really, it was a transit study, but really trying to link future development and transit opportunities together. And so that would reduce any kind of planning and development fees developers would have to do along Kings Canyon to make an argument for why housing should be where it is and the increased access that that would give. So it was both conversations with residents, conversations with business owners, and they're also trying. The cities want to continue the study and really have a focus on equity. How can future development be placed in these areas that would increase access, increase housing opportunities, And then again, make it more plug and play for developers, that they have to go through less oversight, less red tape, because the equity focus is already there and it's a priority investment. So.
Well, if there's anything that we can do to help activate that opportunity corridor, let me know. We're happy to do that.
Yeah,
Great. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a meeting soon.
yeah. Well, and
Okay.
Keith, I wanted to segue into you you're the mastermind of everything. So what context do you want to give to the folks for all of the corridor?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy that people are starting to pay attention to it, because it is a source of solution to economic, social, environmental, and health issues in our region, right? And it is regionally significant. I think the stuff on Ventura Kings Canyon is very interesting. I've been working closely with Diego Velasco, who was his head of City Thinkers, was hired to do the design work there. They've come up with a bunch of templates for different types of development that's allowed along Ventura Kings Canyon on different sites, which is really interesting. That should be published pretty soon. And then I had a great conversation with Daniel Domingos yesterday about EMP is going to apply for a EPA EJ grant to try and organize a number of activities under the banner of Complete Streets and Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Plan for the Southwest Loop. And I'm probably focusing more on Elm and Church at this point because of the transit limitations. So I think there's some great activity here, and it would be great to have a little CEDP subcommittee on the corridors. We're trying to get a lot of money from the state and the feds to come in and help fund complete street investments, which we estimated about $50 million a mile when you get all the underground infrastructure and that kind of stuff. And also asking the state to supply a front-end subsidy for affordable housing of $125,000 a unit, so we can get more of the affordable housing builders activated to actually build transit-oriented development along these corridors. So there's a lot going on. It'd be great to anybody that's interested, we could have a meeting and talk about it. And Jan, I appreciate your offer, and I think there's some great opportunities here to maybe bring down some big resources on different segments of the corridors.
Yep. And so as you see from the map, corridors cuts right through some of our civic infrastructure neighborhoods. So, you know, there's a direct link between civic infrastructure and the corridors along the Jackson Winchell neighborhood, Lincoln King neighborhood, right? So, you know, in the future, as hopefully we build out more neighborhoods doing drive civic infrastructure work, it will have some more neighborhoods along the Blackstone corridor, because very similar to what our civic infrastructure hubs do, corridors, it's organizing, community organizing, but it's not just the residents along the corridor, but it's also the business owners and the property owners, right? So, and then you see how it links to Downtown 2.0 and Elliot and Gloria's work, because that's a major hub for the corridors, is that downtown linkage, right? So all of this is interconnected: transportation, housing, community organizing, businesses, business support. So that these things are within Drive, they're not done in isolation. We want these all working together when it's appropriate. Any other questions on opportunity corridors? It is a place-based work.
Hey, Artie, I
Yeah.
have a question. It's not necessarily about the opportunity corridors. Maybe it ties to it, but it was more about when you were talking about, I guess maybe the difference between CEDP partners and then also like the hubs. Is there overlap, or can a CEDP partner, or will they eventually be a hub? Because I know wasn't there like there was like a first round and then there was supposed to be a second round. I don't know, is that correct? Or
Yeah, for sure. I would love for CEDB partners to eventually be hubs. I think there's so many similarities. I think what I would just say is the CEDB partner really has to demonstrate that they're willing to do the power building work, right? Because that's a key component. If you're not, then you're not really in a place to become a hub yet. But I am hopeful
What is
that
power building versus service?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can you define power building, or what your guys are measuring towards power building?
So when I gave that description of learning conversation to community meeting to leadership development, and then the evidence is, the power building evidence is that these engaged, informed residents are actively doing stuff year round in their neighborhood, right? So you notice in that sequence, I didn't name any projects. It's the human development, the human power building that we fund. And I mentioned earlier that you can use your projects to help achieve that goal. But projects alone do not do power building. And we have the evidence of that of decades of service-based nonprofits. I was one of them, right? So we need to get to a place, and this segues, I think I'll just segue into April 29th. We're teaming up, Drive's teaming up with the Children's Movement, because Mike Espinoza is also doing his own form. It's not place-based power building, but it is resident power building. And we're gonna try to get as many of our residents to the fairgrounds on April 29th, just to demonstrate to themselves that these residents look around and say, dang, there's a lot of other residents here that are doing similar work in their own neighborhoods. And hopefully that is energizing to them, and over time, this group grows from whatever 300, 400, 500 people that show up to 5,000 people that show up. And that's where power building means you're building power to shift power, right? So an example of that, and this is a pretty extreme example, but I think it's something that I would love to see happen in Fresno. When you truly have a shift in power, residents are not only informed, they are actively engaged in all segments of civic activity, including voting, which is probably the greatest way to exercise your power, is you decide who represents you in city council and board, school boards, whatever, right? Power building shifts when the residents have the power to place who they want and have the power to remove who they want. So we also mean, power building means we are creating a structure where resident voices are more at decision-making tables across the board of many tables, education, healthcare, whatever, you name the sector, right? So there are more resident voices scattered across boards, commissions, steering committees, whatever. All right. So that takes work. But it all starts at the ground level where organizations are invested in people. And it is asset-based community development, right? So it's just that we haven't used that power building term much in the past. We've just kept it to ABCD. But if you are truly invested in ABCD, people are going to rise up and want to start exercising their strengths. And sometimes those strengths lead to them wanting to get into situations where they're exercising their voice, their power. Their voice is their power, their knowledge is their power. Their self-efficacy is their power, and even stronger is their collective efficacy is even stronger power, right? So I hope that makes sense.
Artie, a thought or a question, maybe just to suss out conversation. And downtown might be a little bit distinct in this, but when I think about ourselves as a sort of CDC, we're just fundamentally, pro investment in downtown. And when we see the Monarch, housing development with 57 units have 4,000 applicants, so 70x. It just feels smart to position yourself as a place that can provide housing to a market that's desperately in need of housing. But I'm kind of curious how the like housing shortage, needs for housing in the larger market community sort of bridge maybe between neighborhood hub work and CEDP, CDC work. Sometimes in other, let's say, places, empowered neighborhoods or communities become less receptive to more housing coming into their neighborhoods. And so, whereas the kind of the TOD corridor strategy seems very explicitly like we want more of that. So I'm just kind of curious how you're seeing that play out.
Yeah, well, I'll actually ask our CDP housing partners help answer that question. Keith, Esther, April, Jan, whomever.
Let those guys answer first. I can answer for quarters. Yeah, go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, I would just say, I think some of the key words that Artie said was informed and engaged residents, right? And so I think what we've seen in Lowell, especially like, as we've partnered with the city to do the housing element workshop, we heard from informed and engaged residents what housing needs are needed, right? And we have a lot of residents that are pro good housing. The housing that is available right now is not available to everyone. And so those things were brought up. And so it's just interesting, like, yeah, there is the NIMBYism of certain types of housing, but I think when you work on the front end to have informed and engaged residents, then you're going to have less of that in a community, or you're going to have more openness to creative ideas around housing too. So that doesn't get to like, how do we get the money and get things built? But that, I think we'll have more openness to creative ideas around housing when we have the residents that are informed and engaged.
I agree with Esther. The housing element meetings that we were able to host opened a door with huge diversity coming together to have these conversations. And now what I'm seeing in these certain aspects, right, for a lot of our residents, education, because we have our own school district, is a huge topic, and they are very vocal and involved in that. But housing has become another one that people are very involved in. And so right after the housing element in the city, because we have also a West area specific plan that's being layered, but this was the first time I really saw a lot of the, we had 51 who came to our meeting. So of those, I saw about 10 who came to the West area specific plan meeting. I have several who are saying that they plan on coming to Annalisa's having a town forum at our center next week. So they are, and it's a very diverse group of people who are all coming together. Maybe they have different ideas on what the housing needs are or what they want to see based on their version of diversity, but they all agree on the same thing. We need housing. So with that, I feel like there is that engagement, and they're becoming informed and being willing to start going out and doing more things to see that happens. So I do think it's, yes, kind of an ebb and flow of multiple things that are coming together on important topics to different people.
I think another housing related topic is how the housing that people want is available to be built with the current codes. And we're working with the city of Fresno on, who've been receptive to listening to us. Esther and April and I met with Sophia Pagalatis, who is working on the code adjustments. So it's likely that we will have some type of input on how the codes will change to make the housing that people want comply with cities and not have to add the additional costs of conditional use permits.
I want to say a couple of things on power building that just made me think about it. in power building and power sharing, really important to be like transparent about that. So like you're not offering power to a community and then judging what they do with that power. You need to be really transparent and open to like, you're giving that power over to folks and they need to be able to kind of be self-determined about what they use with it. Also challenge the idea of like voting in city council being the ultimate power. I think there's a lot of power in direct action and people being able to respond immediately to conditions in their neighborhood. And getting to housing, a lot of our disinvested, disenfranchised communities have really hard fought to get a voice at the table about housing. And the current climate about like YIMBYism and NIMBYism in housing, I think is continuing to like disenfranchise communities about having a voice in housing. So really important to make sure we're creating space about housing and development that doesn't just like lump everybody that opposes a development into one bucket, but there's more nuance there, especially for disenfranchised and disinvested neighborhoods to continue to have a voice in housing and being able to oppose things that are harmful for their community.
Yeah, good. Keith, any thoughts from you?
Well, I think the power building is really important. The community has to be engaged. I'll just say that the new general plan adopted in 2014 and a new development code with zoning adopted in 2015 put mixed use zoning on Blackstone, Ventura Kings Canyon, and on California and Elm Avenues. And the capacities allowed by right in that zoning, Blackstone, based on our studies of spatial capacity and what's allowed by the current code, that's the development code, not the building code, would be around 18 to 20,000 units on Blackstone. We think probably 6,000 to 8,000 on Ventura Kings Canyon and maybe 3,000 to 4,000 on California and Elm if you actually used all the zoning. So in that case, you've got something between 19 and 30,000 units that are possible just on the corridors. Right now, we're estimating a 50,000 unit deficit for people who are over rent burden, meaning that many people in our county are paying over 50% of their income for rent. So anybody would like to live in someplace with bus rapid transit and the kinds of services that exist on the corridors, there's a lot of capacity there that's already zoned, already approved, you know, that kind of thing. And it'd be great for the community to get in and find developers they want to build the kind of housing they like to see.
And so Drive has a permanent affordable housing initiative, and we've got Esther's in that group. We've got other folks, many of you on CEDP, all of you that are in the CEDP housing work group, you know, would speak into that. Although it hasn't met recently, you know, there's policy components, you know, with housing, you also have to be factoring in displacement, gentrification, things like that, of course. So there's a lot of moving parts within housing, but the simple reality is we need more housing in Fresno, all sorts of housing. And you know, we just want it to also have an equitable aspect as there's development, and there's, you know, we also have to be thinking on a macro scale, you know, what's the city looking at into possible growth in Southeast Fresno sprawl. What is the impact on inner city neighborhoods, right? So we have to be thinking about that as well, because that has been impacting Fresno for decades, the ongoing sprawl. So we're living through those challenges right now. So you know, we can have a focused conversation on housing. I think that's an important topic to dive deeper into. You know, because there's downtown housing that is, you know, Elliott's going to be working on. It has been working on. There's corridor housing. There's housing in our neighborhoods. You know, there's sprawl issues that we have to look at. So that could be a very important and I think strategic conversation in a meeting ahead. I'm going to have to jump to 11:15. But I think going back to Michael's question, I want CEDP partners to be in a great place for when the foundation gets more funding to bring on more hubs. I want to be able to choose from the CEDP partners. That makes the most sense, right? You guys are doing work in the neighborhoods already. So, you know, we learned a lot in our first 3 years of civic infrastructure. So we're making some modifications to our original structure, or our original thinking. The structure is the same, place-based work, of work, community organizing. But I feel you can do projects and community organizing at the same time, right? I think the best of both worlds. You just, you know, we've just never had, you know, there's never been a lot of funding in decades past for just community organizing. There is now. I mean, foundations and other groups see the value of developing people and not just doing projects. So we're in a good place now. So we need to build off of that. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi.
Oh, man.
Expecting a pause after this meeting, so you sound standard. I made a little comment in the chat. We're actually going to update the agenda. Jan is willing to do her training in June when we meet again, so we'll plan on that. And I'm just going to shift to just an open room. Any other updates and or resources to share, conversations to start? I'm going to pass the mic to each of you and allow you to share. I know someone put the yield giving open call into the agenda, so if you wouldn't mind starting us off, that'd be great. I don't know what it is. I just put it aloud. I don't know who it is.
I did. It was me, Allison. I shared it.
Thank you, Allison.
No problem. It's the Mackenzie Scott Bezos giving, Mackenzie Scott, I guess, who used to do or has been doing kind of quiet research and selecting organizations in which to invest her massive wealth through philanthropy. She now has an open call and is planning to fund 250 organizations at $1 million each, and specifically wants to serve organizations or fund organizations that are doing some of the work that we're doing, investing in disinvested neighborhoods and serving people of color. So the first piece of that is due May 5th. If your organization meets the criteria, you have to have a budget of within, I think it has to be a minimum of $1 million a year for at least 2 years, and a maximum of $5 million a year. So I know that doesn't apply to most of us, doesn't apply to me at Southwest Fresno, but it might apply to some of the organizing organizations that we're working with. I don't know the budgets of, you know, the other organizations, but you can also go in as collaboratives. So we're putting a couple of collaboratives, or trying to put a couple of collaboratives together with lead organizations who can meet the criteria. So that's May 5th that the first registration is due, and then the full proposal is due, I think, June 12th. So, but I sent you the link there just in case there are lead organizations who can apply, and then pull some of us in as partners to submit collaboratively.
Allison, is there anybody that you know of that's a good fit for our, that's already going to be kind of applying that you know of, or do we need to create our own?
Well, like I said, you have to have an organization that meets that basic criteria. So there aren't a ton of us that can have, or that have budgets of $1 million over the last 2 years, and, you know, 2 years of financials and taxes and audits and all those things. So, but I've talked to Yolanda Randalls at West Fresno. I've spoken with Cassandra Little at the Fresno Metro Black Chamber, and Lanisha Senegal from Vision View is interested. So those are the only 3 that I know of. I think I emailed Dora, but Dora's over budget, so she can't do something like that. She's too big. So just trying to find that organization that can fit in that 1 to 5 criteria is the challenge.
They have like an assessment before you do a lot of work. Take this assessment to see if you fit.
They do. It's a organizational readiness tool.
Okay.
It's on my task to do this week, but
okay.
in general,
do you want to just let us know if this looks like a good fit
Totally.
for collaboration?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there, yeah, I was gonna say if there is someone, if CEDP meets it, then it would be great if we all went in together on something like that. We just need a lead agency that can meet the criteria.
Budget too high, right?
I don't know what the too high is. I don't know what the
5
cap is,
million,
but I
five.
don't think they would go for it at this point
Yeah.
because of the amount that they're already in.
And I guess the other question, maybe you can find this out, Andrew, this week, is does there have to be like one organization whose budget is between that 1 and 5, or can the collaborative make up the budget?
No, it can't. We already asked.
Didn't even know there's a collaborative option, so.
Yeah, we asked.
Maybe that will be
Yeah.
something you find out in the assessment, but just
We asked. You can't, the organizations themselves cannot make up the collaborative. It has to be one applying organization, and then you can go in as a collaborative, right? So when you're doing your narratives and listing your partners and that kind of thing. But the application specifically states, we called last Friday and they specifically stated that you cannot come in with, 10 organizations that make up the million. There has to be the applicant that meets the minimum criteria.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. So Andrew, you'll follow up with us after you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've downloaded all the docs, just haven't dived in. So once I dive in, yeah, I'll let you know. But I mean, I would, I think again, we're like just crossed the 1 million. So I think it'd be exciting again to further this work. And it's again, another way that EMP is trying to support the work of CDP. So if that's something that's an option, I'm definitely open to it. So.
It has to be 1 million for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Your budget, yeah. So if you have crossed that threshold, then great.
Tax bill set up.
I just gotta get 1 million this year and then we'll be there.
Yeah.
Next year, what's happening?
Do they count currently?
You'll have to look into it too. I actually text you the link.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, what else?
We have a community meeting. Chinatown has a community meeting coming up. Seems like the end of April is very busy. Ours is on Tuesday, the 25th. This community meeting is about construction. So we have city people, we have TPZP, the contractors for high-speed rail, we have high-speed rail speakers, we have PG&E speakers. So we're addressing all the ways that construction is happening in and around Chinatown and getting updates and coordinated timelines and all of that kind of thing. So construction meeting, 5 o'clock at 912 F Street. And if you're interested, join us.
Jan, can you repeat the date?
April 25th at from 5 to 6 p.m.
Thank you.
We have, like I said, I don't think anybody else really is on our side of town, but we have our first town forum with our new council person, Annalisa Perea. And then we're not only part of the Great American Cleanup on Saturday, April 22nd, but in our partnership with Fresno State for the environmental sciences, we actually are doing our second phase of our green space development with an air and climate project and doing all of the planting. We're adding trees, herbs, edible garden pollinators, native plantings, and we're partnering, like I said, with Fresno State. And then we're also bringing in kids from Teague and the high schools to kind of see that mentor relationship that they could develop into a possible career path in that. So 2 big events all at the same day, all based at our location.
Yay. Cool.
Great. What is the date, Fred?
April 22nd. So it's the same day as the Great American Cleanup. Ours, the beautification part starts a little earlier, but they'll both be going on simultaneously.
you. Anyone else have updates, questions, resources to share?
Yeah, it seems like we all picked Earth Day, right, April? So on the
Yes.
22nd, we also have a carnival and bike repair shops. We have a mobile clinic coming down, and this will be at Hidalgo Elementary. So excited for that. And that's from 9 to 1. I'll put out a flyer that Andy can add to the newsletter. In addition to that, yeah, we launched our work-life curriculum, and it's going really well. Already in talks of doing another cohort in the summer. So I'd love to extend that invitation to partners in the CDP network that are alongside the Belmont corridor, right? And if you are interested in more about that, we can talk.
And we also have an event
Go
on
ahead.
April 22nd, Earth Day,
Oh my gosh.
in El Dorado Park in the community garden, with the EOC, and there'll be, activities for families and children and things like that. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot going on that day. But yeah, we can send a flyer soon as well.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Go ahead and send that. Kyle.
Yeah.
I got a little, oh, sorry, go Kyle, sorry.
Two things from South Tower Community Land Trust. The first is just an announcement that we finally got our 501c3 status like 2 weeks ago. It was a long wait from IRS, so big win for us. So send all your bookkeeper financial advice that you could think of my way and welcome it. And then the event, we've got an event the following weekend, not the one everybody else is on, but Porch Fest is happening in the Tower District on April 29th, and we're hosting a South Tower porch at my mom's house on Dudley and Fulton, between Olive and Belmont. That should be a lot of fun. A good way to experience the Tower District.
Yeah. Thank you, Kyle. Keith, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We are not planning an event on April 22nd. But I want to get on your calendar for any of your stakeholders who are aspiring food entrepreneurs. I'm working very closely with Coltiva La Salud and Veva Islas. We're planning a Fresno Food Academy community design workshop for August 17th. It'll be all afternoon. We're bringing in big guns here and trying to do an initial community design of a permanent food academy for training food entrepreneurs and supporting food entrepreneurs in Fresno, California. So this is part of the F3 CVCF initiative, the Del Valle component, and I think it's going to be really exciting. So again, it's for food entrepreneurs. We'll have all the languages to be able to translate. We'll have a lot of key people, and just going through a 4-hour workshop to help the community help design this new academy.
Right, friends?
That sounds awesome, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else before we log off for the next 2 months? Before we see each other again? Well, thank you, friends. As always, please send me all of this information and any other relevant events or updates or opportunities that would be helpful to share in the newsletter that's going out. And Jan, thank you again for being flexible and willing to do your training next time. We're excited about that. If you have nonprofit learning lab access questions or navigation questions, please feel free to give me a call. Downtown Fresno Partnership, welcome. It was great to have you here. And congratulations, Kyle. We're excited for you. Until next time, friends, we'll see you in June 10th.
See y'all.
Are you gonna